My name's Bruce Parkman. I'm the founder of the Mac Parkman Foundation for Adolescent Concussive Trauma. And welcome to our third edition of our podcast, Kids' Brains Matter. And today we have a wonderful guest that's come on here that represents the face of what we as a community and what he is trying to change in America, which is getting our kids out of contact sports or eliminating contact sports completely in order to prevent the types of damage to the brain that folks are suffering and the links to mental illness that are occurring with thousands and thousands of Americans today. And nobody understands this more than our guest today, who's Chris Boyce. Chris Boyce is the founder of the Facebook group CTE and Brain Injury Global Support. They have over 4,000 members, and this group is recognized by the Concussion Legacy Foundation as one of the go-to groups for people that are looking for links for their pain and trying to understand how their concussive history might have contributed or been the cause of their issues. Mr. Boyce, welcome to the show. Chris, tell us about yourself and how you got this group founded, because we think absolutely it's an amazing effort that you're putting forth, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, back in 2007, I know we talked about it earlier, but I played 28 years of ice hockey. Started up in 2007. I started struggling a lot with all the symptoms, and then a couple of years ago, I decided it was time to start a group. I was on Facebook, and I saw one CTE group, but I really didn't see any groups really focusing on CTE. So I wanted to put together a group that, predominantly focused on CTE.
Okay. And it looks like, you're getting an overwhelming response. How do people find your group on Facebook, and how can groups like us get the word out that your focus group exists?
Well, we have tags in Facebook for CTE. So if anyone searches CTE in Facebook, they can easily find our group.
Okay. And, with those concussions that you had, obviously, you feel like you've been suffering some of the obvious effects of CTE. And, we hear over and over again how, you're not going to know this till after you pass. And we feel that, we're talking to folks like yourself, is this connection to the struggles that are endemic to CTE, mental health issues. We think that is the first identification or the first symptom that shows that people are suffering. Can you tell us a little bit about this? And I don't want to get too personal, but to a point where if you're a parent like me, I did not know my son was suffering from depression. Yeah. I thought he was a 17-year-old child. He wanted to spend a little bit less time with me. He's a little bit more distant, kind of apathetic about a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. But there are millions of parents like me that don't recognize when somebody's suffering in it. And it takes strong, brave people, men like and women like you, to come out and talk about these struggles so that they can at least try to identify that if there's somebody that they love is suffering.
Yeah, well, I guess I should go from the beginning. Like I said, back in 2007, I had 2 bad concussions within a week of each other. And the second concussion the following morning, the first thing I woke up and I noticed I had, ringing in my ears. And I really felt like I was almost a different person at that point. It's kind of hard to explain, but I just didn't feel like me anymore. And the first symptoms were obviously, the ringing in the ears, dizziness. 2 weeks prior to that, my daughter was going to be born. So I had a lot of stress on me already that, I didn't want to miss any work. So, after that morning, I only took a day off of work and got right back to work. But, I started noticing the dizziness, the anxiety, the insomnia right away. And, as the months progressed, we started adding other symptoms, anger issues, memory loss, short-term memory. And that's kind of the beginning symptoms. And now I've gotten into a lot more symptoms.
Wow, sir. This face group that you started was all about finding other folks, I guess, that are suffering the way you are right now, and at least having a community where, people can discuss, their problems, which is an amazing option for folks that are suffering. So when you talk about symptoms, what kind of help are you getting from the medical community? Are they at least acknowledging that the issues that you're dealing with are caused by repetitive head trauma, playing contact sports for so long? Are you getting support, insurance coverage, or is this something that nobody wants to talk about, or are folks in this position able to get some help?
Well, let me just go over some of the other symptoms I have. Like I said, we have the anger issues, sensory overload. I can't walk into a store without being overloaded. Everything becomes too overwhelming. You have light sensitivity, sound sensitivity. I have special sunglasses. They don't really help that much. I get out of body feelings. It's almost like I feel like I'm floating. And then I get disoriented. It's like you're a drunk feeling. Paranoia. I can't walk out my front door without thinking my neighbors are watching me, or if I walk around my block, I think somebody's following me. If I'm driving my car, I think the car behind me is following me. That car pulls around me. The next car behind me, I think, is following me. So it's a big psychological game going on. And then you have the suicidal thoughts that go on as well. The short-term memory issues, the rage. The rage is huge. I don't have that count to 10. Somebody says something, I'm going to snap right away. So it's really scary when I get out in public. And as far as the doctors are concerned, I mean, I'm 14 years out now, and it's probably taken me about maybe the last 2 years to really start getting doctors on the same page with me that maybe it is CTE. Because a lot of times, me and other people, it's just psychological. Go see a psychiatrist, go see a therapist, and they're going to fix it for you. The problem is when we go to these psychiatrists and therapists and tell them all this stuff, they start forcing medications on you. Up to date now, I've been on 78 different medications. None of them work for me. I'm pretty sensitive to everything. I'm only currently on one. I'm taking a new Dexta, which is supposed to be used for vestibular effect for people that have issues with crying and uncontrollable laughter. But they're finding it could be useful for anger issues. So that's the newest medication I'm on right now, and the only medication I'm on. But
Well, good for you.
yeah, it's just with doctors, you're going back and forth from a neurologist. They're saying go see the psychiatrist, go see the therapist. You go to the therapist, the psychiatrist. They go through all the medications. They don't know what to do. Then they send you back to the neurologist. So it's a big game between the two, and that's what I hear a lot of people talking about in the group. The doctors don't know what to do with people like us, unfortunately. The only options are to throw medications at you.
Are they at least acknowledging that it's your sports history that is, responsible for these symptoms and this pain? Or are they, so they are acknowledging the fact that your almost 30 years of playing contact sports from a very young age is the reason that you're seeing them?
Absolutely. But like I said, it took me a long time to get them on the same page that, hey, it's my sports history going on, not some kind of mental illness. And I think the reason for that, for me anyway, is because 78 medications, if none of them are working, obviously it's a brain injury going on, not a mental issue.
Right. I mean, 78 medications will give you brain damage if you ask me, right? I mean, gosh, dude, I mean, yeah, because we're running into a lot of we know that in the psychological industry, nobody's trained. We talk to a lot of youth athletes, young adults in their 20s now with significant mental health disorders. Yeah. And when they go to a therapist, the therapist, just asked them if they had some trauma in their childhood, some genetic predisposition. They don't even understand that their contact sports is what put them in front of that therapist. So the fact that you were able to get some doctors and some therapists on board, at least understanding that is a huge step that many of these adults that we talk to, they haven't been able to do that yet. How did you accomplish that? I mean,
the biggest thing, and I tell everyone, you have to be your best advocate. in 2009, I went to, I'm not going to mention his name, but I went to one of the top specialists, concussion specialists in the country, not related to the Concussion Foundation. But, I went out to them in Buffalo, and they did my MRIs. They looked at all my stuff, and they basically told me there's no other tests they can do for me. You probably have brain injury, and they sent me on my way. It wasn't until about a year later when I moved to Florida where I met my neurologist. He offered a different type of MRI called the Dti Mri. And we had that done, and it actually showed that I had a axonal shear injury in my superior frontal lobe, 2 microhemorrhages, and white matter loss. So if I wasn't persistent in, telling these doctors there's something going on here, I'd never know I had that brain damage. I would have just gone off of that first MRI and said, okay, you probably have it. So it's really important that if you feel there's something wrong, keep searching, keep looking for tests, keep looking for medications. I'm not condoning medications. I always say go the natural route first, but when you've exhausted everything, you got to be willing to try everything.
Tell me a little bit more about this DTI, because we honestly feel that it's changes to the white matter, particularly in a developing brain before the age of 14, that is really driving a lot of the mental illness that we're seeing in our sports athletes now. And we are actively looking for things to fund, projects to fund, because if we can show a parent that you've got axonal shearing, which is a horrific brain injury, all right, you cannot repair that.
Yep.
And then the changes to white matter, whether it's white matter loss, lower synaptic count, and changes to myeliniation. We want to identify these because we're getting to the point now with, if we can show, instead of, to your point, well, you might have had a brain injury from your original MRI to go into, oh, you have a brain injury. All right.
Yep.
Now we know what to treat. And this is not just a bunch of medications. I mean, there's stem cell treatment. I mean, there's other treatments that may or may not, we don't know yet, help out. But first of all, you have to identify the injury, which it sounds like this test really helped you with. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I am not a doctor, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, me either. A normal MRI can see an axonal shear injury, but if it's small enough, in my case, you're going to need a more fancier MRI, and that's basically what it does. I guess I'm not a doctor, right, but I guess it's measuring the water molecules in the brain and the axons.
Yes, sir. From what I know in our research is that I guess the molecules can only go one way in an axon. If they are, that you've got normal axonal or a normal movement. If they're going, across the axons or out of the axons, then you have significant damage. So I think that's one of the. It was I can't remember the name of it, but DTI sounds familiar. So we'll dig into that, because if that helped you, that these are the kinds of evaluations and assessments.
Another great MRI is actually my friend Jimmy Larisi is the one that brought me onto this MRI, but it's called a NeuroQuant MRI. It doesn't cost nearly as much as a DTI MRI, and it comes with a complete report, and you can get something called an age related atrophy report. So it's going to basically measure every part of your brain, and I feel it's a nice tool for somebody to have a baseline test, and then every year or every 2 years get that done again and see if anything's changed.
You mentioned the cost. Have you been able to get, has your insurance been able to cover a lot of this? Is it, now that you have doctors and therapists saying, we've got to cause long-term contact sports, heavy, repetitive, concussive trauma. Have you been able to get the coverage you deserve to pay for these evaluations, or have you been out of pocket?
I've had to fight for some of them. Yeah. The DTI they did take, I had to fight for the PET scan. I had to fight for a DAT scan. I just wanted to rule out Parkinson's disease. Then the NeuroQuant wasn't a big deal, but I mean, other stuff like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I would absolutely love to do it, but insurance isn't going to cover it. and then you have photobiomodulation. I was going to take part in the clinical study in Utah, and then the whole coronavirus thing came about, so I couldn't do it. But then I ended up going out and buying it myself. This May will be a year since I've been using it.
And with all the adversity you faced as as an athlete, as an individual, as a father, and as a husband, I mean, you're still driving on. Right, you're still going forward. And you're an amazing example of resiliency. What would you pass on to other people that are struggling to help them? The world's never going to be perfect, but you are doing your absolute best, and you're an amazing example to so many people. What kind of recommendations would you make to help them out?
The big thing is support. You got to gather some kind of support system around you. My wife helps me out a lot. She knows not to get into my face, basically. But yeah, having a support system is huge, especially with suspected CTE. We get in those mood swings, and just having someone by your side is really important. I know a lot of survivors don't have that option, so you got to kind of look for outside services. But
Some great thoughts. As we continue to dial into this problem, we find out that it's much larger than any of us really realize. And the fact that you're putting a face to this. I mean, as a foundation, we're looking, to illuminate and we links between brain damage and mental illness, and you're actually, with you and your Facebook group, are allowing people, to understand that, we have no idea how many hundreds of thousands or millions of young adults right now are either in psychiatric care or are looking for some proof or reason to their suffering, and you're absolutely helping them out. How do they I guess with the tags and being able to find your group, as far as resources, are you able to send people to, do you have relationships built, like a network of specialists or providers that you can recommend to these folks that as they come into your group to find the support that they need?
we don't have any, as far as providers go, we haven't gotten that advanced yet, but we do send a lot of stuff to the CLF hotline to help out. But as far as me, I try to do a lot of research for everybody. If they come in with a certain topic, I try to find that information for them. And we have a big topic section, a file section where you can find information. So the biggest thing is just having a safe place for people to speak. A lot of these people are out in public or out with their family, and they kind of feel ashamed of the symptoms and what's going on with them, and they actually don't know what's going on, and they're looking for answers. So a group like ours is good, so they see that they're not alone.
And just think of all the folks that are out there that are suffering right now and have no idea why. I
Yep.
mean, we talk to parents whose kids were diagnosed with mental illness, and until they've heard us talk, they just thought that their kid was crazy, wild, whatever. And they come to us and they say, "My son started playing football at 8, and now they have a reason." And I think more needs to be done to educate parents. How do you think we as a community, your Facebook page, the community of suffering parents, whatever, what can we do to get more attention placed on this? Because I think, to your point, there comes a time when you'd bicycle without a helmet, your parents would smoke inside the car, nobody wore a
Yep.
seatbelt. We look at all these things that have changed, right? Why have they changed? Because we now know they're not
Yep.
right. I think the science, I mean, we have identified the links between brain trauma and mental illness going back 30 years. This is nothing new. It just has not been applied to contact sports. What do you think we need to do to get more attention placed on this? Because this is, as you mentioned in one of your interviews, it's completely avoidable. My son, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of other athletes that are suffering right now did not need to suffer. And
Yep.
that's the horror here, is that so many folks are hurting and they don't or didn't need to hurt, but we have this level of ignorance in our society about what we're doing to children when they start playing sports too young, or if if they're avid enough about a sport, because you can play hockey year round now. You can play football year round with travel leagues, playing for the town. And we're taking a sport with in ignorance that we think, hey, they got a helmet on, they got pads, and we think everything's good, and it's not. So how do we bring it? How, in your mind, I mean, as a face to this problem,
Yeah,
how do we get attention to this?
I think the biggest problem is still you have parents that are thinking, they played that sport when they were younger and they're not having the symptoms now. So they think their kid can go ahead and not going to have any problems, and that's the biggest problem there. I mean, it took me, I started at age 12. So it I had no symptoms. Well, so I thought, now that I look back, I could probably say there was stuff going on in high school. But I mean, I had no real major symptoms until 2007. That's kind of like it set off a cascade. So, just the parents they got to get out of that mentality that, it didn't happen to them. It's not going to happen to their kid. You can just be one hit away from changing your life forever.
And I would say that most of those parents don't think that anything happened to them because they didn't have a broken leg, they didn't have something they could see. But
Yep.
I'll guarantee you that most of those parents, if they played as hard as you did, they have mental health issues, but they're not educated enough to say, oh, my mental health issues are related to my football.
Yep.
They don't understand that, and I think
No.
that's some of the awareness that your Facebook group and your organization and you personally are helping bring to this topic.
And that's
So I mean, and obviously you're a father. You have children now, right?
I have 2 daughters, and I have them both on the swim team.
Well, as long as they're not diving, because that's a big head buster there. But no, and that's how we learn, sir. I mean, I've got my friends, my son's friends, they're up here snowboarding with us this week, and and they now know why their friend is no longer here, and we're getting this education out bit by bit, because it's going to be folks like you that are acting as parents in the name of their kids. And I think when we come down to our children, we have nothing left, and we'll do everything for them. But we cannot protect them against the risks that we don't know about. And we always tell folks, the love for your child will not protect them. Your knowledge will. And you're great. You are helping us expand that knowledge. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there any last words you'd like to throw out there that we can help pass on about the Facebook group, how to get a hold of you, how they can become more involved with your organization? Because as we talk to people, we find so many folks out there that are suffering, but we don't know where to go. So, we send them to the Concussion Legacy Foundation for treatment options. But until I heard about your group, we had no idea that a support group existed. And I think it's an amazing testimony to you as a person and as an athlete and as a father and a husband that you have gone so far. So, what can we do to help you out, Chris?
Well, we have our group, we have the CTE group for us, and then also, like you said, CLF also has their support group as well. So I think having both of those is really helpful.
All right. Well, you are definitely on our short dial list as we start to expand the word. And I want to thank you so much for your bravery. It takes so much to take these, and I know the pain of going public with my son, but you're a face to this particular condition. And I cannot thank you enough for your bravery, for coming out forward with the struggles that you're going through. And I want to congratulate you on your success so far. I'm going to add you to my prayer list for not only what you're doing for your success for yourself, but for the thousands of athletes that follow you. And I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, with parents, I mean, there's so many other fantastic sports for people to play. You just, you got to get out of all those contact sports. There's a lot of sports that you can play and still have that team building. And that's what everyone wants. You want to, have that camaraderie between each other and you got to get out of that. Just put your kid in football, put your kid in soccer. I mean, not soccer, hockey. There's a lot of other fantastic sports, and they're still going to get that benefit. So that's.
Well, as a former semi-pro rugby player, rugby and hockey and football, I mean, we all love the camaraderie, as you said. But, to your point, sir, it's just not worth it. And I really wish I would have let my son be a professional video gamer. But, he picked the sports. And I just wanted to support him. I never played these sports. I just said, all right, man, nobody gets hurt wrestling or playing football at this age. And you got a helmet on and and so in my ignorance, I made, some very, very bad decisions that ended up costing me everything I wanted to live for. So your advice is absolutely on par. We're going to keep pushing it out. We do have a book coming out. It's a youth contact sports survival guide for parents, where we're going to educate them on why you need to wait. And then it's only one sport. And we would love to have you review that book and tell us what you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'd love to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Boyce. He's the founder of the Facebook CTE group. That is just really the place to go for everybody that you think that you have met that's had a concussive past, played in concussive sports, and is now struggling with mental health issues. We highly advise that you reach out to Chris. And if there's other treatment options, he will definitely get them to the Concussion Legacy Fund. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing, your thoughts and your insight into this problem that I think we're going to start working hard to address. And we're going to keep working with you, sir. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. God bless you, sir. You have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.